Medieval gardens grew over 100 different vegetables. Your grocery store carries about 30, and most of those 30 are the same plant bred into different shapes. Broccoli, cauliflower, kale, Brussels sprouts, and cabbage are all the same species wearing a different costume. Frank Miller here with Heritage Garden Wisdom. And 7 vegetables that fed Europe for centuries have been quietly pushed out of seed catalogs, removed from commercial farming, and in some cases made illegal to sell as food. Not because they failed, because they could not be shipped, stored, or mass-produced fast enough to make corporations money. These plants grew in poor soil, survived frost, fought off pests without chemicals, and delivered nutrition that modern vegetables cannot touch. They thrived in conditions that would kill the weak, water-dependent crops lining your produce aisle today. The reason they disappeared is simple. A plant that comes back every year for a decade without replanting does not fit a business model that depends on you buying new seed every spring. A vegetable that stores for 6 months in a root cellar without electricity does not fit a supply chain that profits from weekly grocery trips. We traded plants that came back every year for plants you have to buy every season. We traded vegetables that thrived in bad soil for vegetables that need fertilizer, irrigation, and pesticides just to survive. We traded gardens that ran themselves for a produce aisle that runs on diesel fuel. Medieval gardeners understood vegetables as part of a complete system. Skirret fed the family while holding the soil together year after year. Scorzonera healed your gut while breaking up clay for the next crop. Nothing existed in isolation. Every plant served the garden, the kitchen, and the community at once. We traded that system for one that needs trucks, warehouses, plastic packaging, and a cold chain stretching thousands of miles just to deliver spinach that wilts before you get it home. The question is not whether medieval vegetables were better. A plant that feeds you for 15 years from one planting while improving the soil it grows in speaks for itself. The question is whether you are willing to grow what the seed catalogs stopped selling. Vegetable number 1, Sium cicerum, Skirret. The botanical name is Sium cicerum. This is a root vegetable that was the centerpiece of medieval feasts, served at royal banquets across England and France for 400 years. Skirret is a cluster of white finger-sized roots that taste sweet enough to eat raw with no sugar added and no cooking required. Medieval writers described the flavor as a cross between parsnip and sweet potato, but sweeter than both. The plant is a perennial. You plant it once and it comes back every year. You do not replant, you do not buy new seed, you just harvest what you need and leave the rest to keep growing. Medieval kitchen gardens kept skirret patches for decades. One planting fed a family for a generation. The roots grow in clusters of 8 to 12 fingers, each about 15 to 20 centimeters long. You pull the cluster, snap off what you need, and replant the crown. It grows back. No tilling, no rotation, no bare soil sitting empty between seasons. Skirret was a favorite of the Emperor Tiberius, according to Pliny the Elder. In 1677, English horticulturalist John Worledge wrote that skirret was the sweetest, whitest, and most pleasant of roots. The roots are rich in carbohydrates, containing approximately 15 to 20% carbohydrates by weight. Before sugar from sugar cane and sugar beets became popular, skirret was a major source of sweetness for Europeans. The Dutch still call it Zuckerwurzel, and the Germans Zuckerwurzel. Both mean sugar root. The roots can be harvested after the first frost, or better yet, in late winter or early spring for the sweetest roots. After root harvest, you can divide each plant into 4 to 6 separate clumps and replant for the following year's harvest. Vegetable number 2, Chenopodium bonus henricus, Good King Henry. The botanical name is Chenopodium bonus henricus. Walk into any medieval English village between the 1200s and the 1600s, and you would find this plant growing next to every cottage door. Good King Henry acted as spinach, asparagus, and broccoli all in one plant. The young shoots in spring were cut and eaten like asparagus. The leaves through summer were cooked like spinach. The flower buds were steamed like broccoli. 3 vegetables from one plant that nobody had to water, fertilize, or protect from frost. Good King Henry is a perennial that comes back every year stronger than the year before. It grows in the worst soil imaginable: clay, rocky ground, compacted paths next to buildings. It actually prefers soil that has been walked on and packed down. A 2019 study from the University of Ljubljana in Slovenia analyzed the nutritional profile of Good King Henry leaves and found it contained 30% more iron than modern spinach, significantly higher levels of calcium, and a broader range of B vitamins. The plant medieval villagers treated as a common weed was more nutritious than the spinach you pay $4 a bag for. The reason it disappeared is that Good King Henry grows slowly. You cannot harvest the leaves until the 2nd year. Modern agriculture needs crops that go from seed to shelf in 45 days. A plant that asks for patience does not fit that model. For your garden, Good King Henry is the ultimate low-effort green. Plant it in a neglected corner, ignore it for a year, then harvest leaves, shoots, and flower buds from the same patch for 10 to 15 years without replanting. Vegetable number 3, Smyrnium olusatrum, Alexander's. The botanical name is Smyrnium olusatrum. Before celery arrived from Italy in the 1700s, every kitchen in Northern Europe used a different plant for the same job: Alexander's, a tall, dark-stemmed plant that tastes like celery mixed with parsley, but stronger and more complex. The Romans brought it to Britain. It grew wild along coastlines and near monastery walls for over 1,000 years. Every part of the plant was edible. The stems were blanched and eaten like celery. The leaves went into soups and stews. The roots were roasted. Even the flower buds were pickled. Alexander's handles salt spray, coastal wind, and chalky soil that kills most garden vegetables. It is a biennial, 2 years from seed to full harvest, but once established, it self-seeds so freely that medieval monastery records describe having to control its spread rather than encourage its growth. When celery was introduced as a commercial crop, it replaced Alexander's almost overnight, not because celery tasted better, but because celery could be grown in rows, harvested by machine, and shipped without wilting as fast. Alexanders have hollow stems that bruise easily. They do not stack in crates. They do not survive a truck ride from farm to warehouse to store. In 2013, the University of Reading's Archaeology Department published research on medieval monastic gardens and documented Alexanders as one of the 5 most common vegetables in English monastery kitchen gardens between the 10th and 15th centuries. 500 years of daily use erased by a plant that ships better in a box. Vegetable number 4, Scorzonera hispanica, Scorzonera, or black salsify. This is a vegetable that medieval physicians prescribed as medicine and medieval cooks served as a main course. Scorzonera, also called black salsify or viper's root, is a long, thin, black-skinned root that when peeled and cooked tastes so much like oysters that it earned the name oyster plant across 5 European languages. The root can reach 30 centimeters long and grow straight down into the ground, breaking up compacted soil as it grows. Medieval farmers used it as a rotation crop specifically because it improved the soil for whatever came next. The deep taproot pulled minerals up from layers that shallow-rooted crops could not reach. When the root was harvested, it left behind channels that helped water drain into heavy clay. Scorzonera contains one of the highest concentrations of inulin found in any vegetable. Inulin is a prebiotic fiber, food for the good bacteria in your gut. A 2017 study from Wageningen University in the Netherlands measured inulin content in 40 common root vegetables, and Scorzonera topped the list at 20% inulin by dry weight. That's more than chicory root, which is the industrial source most prebiotic supplements are made from. Medieval physicians in the 1300s and 1400s prescribed Scorzonera for digestive complaints and general weakness. They did not know the word inulin, but they observed that people who ate it regularly had fewer stomach problems and recovered from illness faster. For your garden, Scorzonera is a perennial that can be left in the ground over winter and harvested as needed. Frost actually makes it sweeter. Vegetable number 5. Campanula rapunculus, Rampion. The botanical name is Campanula rapunculus. This is a vegetable so valued in medieval Germany that it inspired one of the most famous fairy tales ever written. The Brothers Grimm story of Rapunzel is not named after a girl, it is named after a plant. Rapunzel is the German word for rampion. In the original story, a pregnant woman craves rampion growing in the witch's garden so badly that her husband steals it and the witch takes their child as payment. That is how important this vegetable was. It was worth risking everything for. Rampion is a biennial with a white turnip-like root and edible leaves. The root was eaten raw in salads or cooked like a mild radish. The leaves were used like lettuce. Medieval German and French kitchen gardens grew it as a winter salad vegetable, one of the few fresh foods available during the cold months when everything else had been stored or preserved. The plant grows through cold weather that would destroy modern lettuce. It handles frost, light snow, and short days without bolting or going bitter. German monastery records from the 1400s list rampion as a required planting in every kitchen garden. The monks understood that without it there was no fresh food between November and March, 4 months of the year where rampion was the only green thing on the table. Rampion disappeared because it is slow. The root takes a full year to reach edible size. Modern radishes are ready in 25 days. The market does not wait for a root that needs 12 months when it can sell one that needs 3 weeks. Vegetable number 6. Salsola soda, Agretti or Barilla. The botanical name is Salsola soda. Medieval farmers in coastal Spain, southern France, and Italy grew this vegetable in salt marshes, beach sand, and soil so salty that no modern crop would even sprout. Agretti, commonly called Barilla, is a succulent grass-like plant with crunchy stems that taste like salty green beans with a mineral bite. The plant thrives in saline soil. It does not just tolerate salt, it absorbs it. The stems are naturally salty because the plant pulls sodium out of the ground and stores it in its tissue. Medieval farmers used this to their advantage. They grew Agretti on ruined, salt-contaminated land and used the plant to clean the soil. After a few seasons of Agretti, the ground could support other crops again. This is called phytoremediation, using plants to fix damaged soil. Modern environmental scientists use this technique with expensive engineered programs. Medieval Mediterranean farmers did it with a food crop that they ate for dinner and then sold the ash to glassmakers. The burnt plant produced soda ash, sodium carbonate, which was the key ingredient in Venetian glassmaking for centuries. One plant fed the family, healed the soil, and created an industrial product, all without irrigation, fertilizer, or anything from a store. Agretti does not ship. The stems start losing their crunch within hours of picking. There's no way to package it, truck it across a country, and sell it 5 days later still looking fresh. Vegetable number 7. Atriplex hortensis, Orach or mountain spinach. The botanical name is Atriplex hortensis. Orach, also called mountain spinach, is a tall, striking plant with leaves that come in deep red, purple, gold, and green. It was the most common cooking green in Europe before spinach replaced it in the 1700s, not because spinach was better, but because spinach was more convenient. Orach grows to 2 meters tall. A single plant produces more edible leaf material than an entire row of modern spinach. The leaves do not bolt and turn bitter in hot weather the way spinach does. They do not wilt after picking the way store-bought greens do. And the plant handles heat, drought, frost, and poor soil that modern spinach simply cannot survive. Nutritional testing by the Institute of Food Research in Norwich found that red Orach contains higher levels of betalain antioxidants than beetroot. The same compounds that make beets good for blood pressure and inflammation are concentrated in Orach leaves at higher levels, and you can eat them raw. Medieval farmers grew Orach as a self-seeding annual. You plant it once, it drops seed, next year it comes back on its own. Within 3 seasons, you have a permanent patch of cooking greens that requires nothing from you. No watering, no feeding, no replanting, no trips to the store. Spinach replaced Orach because spinach is small, uniform, and fits in a plastic bag. Orach is tall, wild-looking, and impossible to standardize. Like this video, subscribe to Heritage Garden Wisdom, and comment below which of these 7 plants are you putting in the ground first. Frank reads every one.